Welcome to the Eating at a Meeting podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Stuckrath, dietary needs expert, certified meetings manager, certified food protection manager. I have searched the globe to find people and businesses who are creating safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experiences for their employees, guests, and communities. In each episode, you will find authentic conversations about how food and beverage impacts inclusion, sustainability, culture, community, health, and wellness. I know that sounds like a lot, but we're going to cover it all. Are you ready to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line? If so, let's go. Today's guest is chef and owner April Cunningham of April's Table out of Severna Park, Maryland, which I used to live in. So I'm so excited to have her with me. And I met her last May. Is that right?
Yes.
When I spoke for Freeman, which is an event, if you're not familiar with them, Freeman is an exhibit company and they were doing an education program. And so she catered it. And I loved the labeling that she did for signage for all of the food that she put out on the display. And so we connected from that point on. And yeah, here we are. So hi, April.
Hi, Tracy. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
I am excited too. So we're in the middle of a pandemic.
We are. Yes.
Yeah. So tell me, how are you doing? How's the business doing? And you personally?
Sure. Well, so I'm grateful to be well and healthy and, I'm surrounded by my family and friends. Everyone so far is healthy and safe and well. So I'm so grateful for that. But yes, my business has changed drastically, going from doing full service catering events to prepared meals for contactless curbside pickup or delivery, which we offered before, but obviously not to the extent that we're offering now. So it is a huge difference. I've also unfortunately had to temporarily furlough my staff. So I'm a one-woman show right now, which, is really disheartening. But at the same time, I think that, bringing their safety into everything as well. And just, the survival of April's Table, that's the move I had to make. So it's a whole new thing. It's my new normal, but so it's definitely entirely different.
Yeah, I can imagine. So last week when we were chatting briefly, because if I've got any Severna Park, Crofton, Maryland area peeps on here, I want them to know what you've got on the menu and how you can help them eat healthy throughout the week.
Sure. So we do try our best to stick with local, seasonal, really sourcing everything from local food vendors, farms, and things of that nature. So we end up getting really great quality products. And I just tend to cook toward the healthier side of things. And don't get me wrong, I definitely love my lasagnas sometimes and things like that. But overall, I do try to just incorporate those seasonal flavors and make it nice and healthful and for people to feel nice and full and satisfied, but as well as feeling healthy about it. So we don't do a lot of frying. I don't have a fryer. If we do fry things, it's rare. We do a lot of roasting, grilling, braising, things of that nature, sautés, stuff like that. So, and on the menu changes. We offer 2 menus a week now. One is a bigger menu where we offer a frittata for a breakfast option. We offer a weekly soup and a family dinner for 4, which is usually very comforting, like a lasagna or, something to that extent, like a meal deal. And then I started the Weekenders edition, which is a little more limited, but fun and comfort, more comfort, geared, which we also just added this past week, a date night option for 2. So something a little fancier, elevated, if you want to have that date night in with your hubs or you just want to treat yourself. This past week was Maryland crab cakes and stuff like that.
Oh, can you send me some of those in North Carolina?
Yes, freeze them and ship them. And we make them gluten-free if you need to.
Okay. Oh, that's even better. Yay.
Yes.
So what do you use in the gluten-free how do you make them gluten-free?
So we make our own gluten-free bread in-house, and then I use that and toast it as the breadcrumb.
Okay.
Puree it up and use that instead of what I typically would use is like a panko breadcrumb.
Okay, so somebody listening to me who's celiac or gluten-free, and you just said you make gluten-free bread in a kitchen that's not normally gluten-free. So can you explain to people how you do that?
Yes. So we are not a certified gluten-free kitchen. So we do bake a lot of other things with regular, your standards, all-purpose flours and things like that. So we do take great care in being very aware and safe in regards to cross-contamination. So when I'm making gluten-free bread, that's the only thing I'm making in terms of baking. There's no other flours floating in the air. There's no other way that it can be contaminated. So I do it per day. So if I have, I know that one day I'm going to bake all this other stuff. So this day I'm going to do the gluten-free stuff. So and just really try to keep it as separate as possible. But because we're not a certified gluten-free kitchen, unfortunately, we can't make any 100% guarantees, but we do take great care and have never had an issue. So we do our best to, it's important, any dietary restriction is super important. I think that anyone with any dietary restriction should be able to enjoy their meal and not be worried that they're not going to feel well later or that they're going to have a reaction.
So, and I know that you said you've got one client that you've got whole vegan, no salt. So tell people about what you do for them.
Sure. So I have an amazing client who sort of started this train of coming to me and asking me for whole food, plant-based options that are, so obviously vegan, that are salt, oil, and sugar-free.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yes. So there's no sauteing here. Well, we saute, but it's actually with water. Okay. And it's a process that you kind of learn and, and I've learned a lot from it. But so she and I started working together and she would send me some recipe ideas and I would cultivate my own, of course. And now I have a whole group that she has helped bring along that offers these vegan meals. And on the dinner club that I mentioned earlier, on the on both menus, but more so on the big menu of the week, I offer an entire whole food, plant-based, salt, oil-free, and sugar-free selection. So there's a whole separate menu of those options for them. So today I made, they pick up on Wednesdays or I deliver on Wednesdays. So this morning I made Brussels sprout, apple pecan salad for them. I made an African, a broccoli, blueberry, almond salad. And it's all just whole foods, no oils or anything like that.
So no oils, not at all. So not even like avocado oil or, oh, wow. No oil.
Yep.
No oil. Okay.
No oil. So we have and it's just interesting. Like I said, at first I said, this is totally new to me. How am I going to saute and get that same flavor? And it is a little more, you can't walk away, you can't start the pot and then go chop because the water evaporates so quickly, it doesn't stick around like oil does. So you do have to stand over it and make sure that you're not burning anything, but it works out quite well. I was amazed at how great the outcome was and how delicious it can be without the oil. So
that's so awesome. Now, one thing that you said to me or said in there was that she brought you this, that one client brought you this idea or this need, and then she has now brought you this whole slew of other clients. Yes. So to me, that just shows the business opportunity.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, 100% agreed. Yeah, I think that, and for a long time, I didn't put it on our menus. She would just call me and we would chat and decide what she was going to get that week. And now it's become a necessity to put that menu out there because people order from it. And some of our clients who aren't whole food plant-based and aren't worried about the salt, oil, and sugar are ordering it anyway because it's delicious and it's nutritious and they're enjoying it. So they might not follow that diet strictly, but they are really, enjoying everything. And so it works out very well.
it's funny that you say that. I gave a presentation earlier this year, and it was in person before we had the whole shutdown. And I was explaining that one of my clients, 1/3 of their attendees out of 600 had dietary restrictions.
Oh, wow.
And 100 of the 200 were vegan or vegetarian. And then we had another 100 that were a variety of different things. And this man said to me, he's like, you keep talking about the 1/3 of these attendees and that we have to feed these people. What about the other 2/3 of the people? What are you going to feed them? I'm like, and I just took a deep breath and I'm like, you can eat everything on the menu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Broaden your horizons.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that these people that are not following the vegan plant-based diet are ordering the options that you have. I mean, that just goes to show that it is good food.
Absolutely. I think people who, have a, I don't want to say normal, but general diet where they, enjoy meat and cheese and things of that nature. I know I do.
Right.
But, they get a little put off, when you offer for example, one of our popular items is a 3 greens casserole. And the sauce is actually made with cashews. So it says a creamy sauce, but there's no animal product. There's no, there's no cream in it. It's simply creamy because I blend the cashews with, these different ingredient, nutritional yeast and all these different things to give it that similar flavor. And people are, pleasantly surprised at how tasty it is. It's just different. And I think that if you're willing to try new things in general, that there's no reason for you to not enjoy these things, even though they're just a little different.
Right. And now, so then you're using tree nuts. Are you telling people that it contains tree nuts in it?
Yes. So everything. So on our order guide, and on the menu, but when you click, it'll say like, click here to order now. You can, it says in every description, contains gluten, contains dairy, dairy-free, contains shellfish, contains nuts, all these things,
right.
Along with it in the description of the menu item. So I try to be super specific so that people don't accidentally order something that perhaps they have a nut allergy or something to that effect.
Okay. So on Friday of last week, I gave a presentation for MPI, Meeting Professionals International. And I had, what did I say, 68, 69 questions outside of the ones I answered, but that came through. And so some of them are really directed to catering companies. So I wanted to throw some of them out there to you.
Okay.
One of them was, so I was talking about, food safety, what meeting planners should be asking hotels and catering partners about food safety and what their practices are. And one person asked, do we need to ask these of independent caterers as well? I say yes. And are you willing to share your food safety practices with them? And on that note too, is that I also told them to ask for the health inspection score. So do you have your health inspection score?
Yes. So, well, first of all, yes, 100%. I think they should ask it of their, their caterer. We're providing a service, and any expectations that you have, I welcome, so that we can be very clear on what you need and what you want, what your vision is. It's not required here to have a posting like in some other cities of what your health inspection score is. So I don't have it hanging in the window or anything, but if you are interested in that information, I'm happy to share it. We have 100% A rating. We never, knock on wood, maybe I think the last ding we got was I had my self-closing door handle thing broke and I had to get that replaced, but it wasn't even food, related. So I do operate a small kitchen. It's not huge, which I think is helpful, but we have standard cleaning procedures, standard opening procedures, and take the sanitation very seriously. And certainly with the pandemic have just gone above and beyond with that and way over the top with it. But it's so important, and it's important anyway. And then given these times that we're in, and I'm happy to share any of that information with any client who is interested in working with me.
That's awesome. One of the questions that I got the other day, this was interesting and I love it, is that the person said, I own an event staffing company. We do not provide food. We provide staff to serve it. What safety elements should we expect to be responsible for? So I have my own ideas, but I would love from your side as the person hiring them, what do you want those employees to know?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think generally speaking, they need to have, if they don't have ServSafe certification, they need to have some sort of background in this industry so that they're aware of just general guidelines and rules in regards to serving food, busing, all of that good stuff. But these times that we're in now, I definitely think that the communication of what's expected of the staff along with the client is so important because, for example, if we were able, obviously right now we can't, but if we were able to do a full service event, I would be 100% taking into account all of the procedures we already have, but on top of any regulations that our governor has issued or anything of that nature to really follow those guidelines, including social distancing, how to serve guests, how they're seated. And I would be very committed to making sure that was the case because I ultimately wouldn't be comfortable executing the event without that structure. So, I do think it's really important. And, one thing that we like to do with our event staff is, we have powwows and meetings prior to the event. We have, I send out an email with very descriptive of the timeline and what's expected of everyone and what their positions are and also those regulations. So, it makes for a less hectic day, first of all, when everyone knows everything. And secondly, it just really, reinforces that, they know the expectations that I have that the client has. So I think that's all really important.
One of the things that I've been hearing from some people is that right now, if these servers and hotel staff and stuff are able to get unemployment, which hopefully they all are, they're actually making more money on unemployment than potentially coming back to work for you. How do you think that's going to impact us in general and you when we do? I mean, you can't run this. You can't cook it and then serve it. Yeah.
Yeah. It is a concern. Of course, and unemployment doesn't last forever. And I think that that's the thing. Obviously, I'm grateful that my crew is able to collect unemployment and be taken care of at this time. That was my biggest worry. I, didn't want them to suffer because of this, but obviously it's out of all of our hands. But I do think that you have to have a broader aspect of what's actually going on here. Yes, maybe you're making a little extra because of the CARES Act and all that stuff. But if, in my opinion, if your, employer is able to open back up and, that's what's going to help the economy keep going. And that's what's going to help. And a lot of these restrictions and things, these opportunities that they have for people, it's a less workload. It's not really about what you're doing. It's more just keeping you on payroll, keeping you employed, and keeping those businesses going. So it has been interesting. I've heard all different sides of the positives and the negatives. So I do think that it's going to eventually, hit us pretty hard. I think that people are going to choose to not work. Whether it be because they're making more money on unemployment or that they're just generally scared and concerned for their health, which I've heard a lot. And I respect that, 100%. So I think the industry is going to see huge changes and it's going to be a lot of learning for all of us. Because I don't even know when we're going to be able to have another event of the size, even the Freeman event, so it's going to be really interesting, but it's going to change. It's going to change a lot.
Okay, so I just wanted to make people aware that Freeman is based in Alexandria. So I wanted to make a point that April will deliver and provide catering in Alexandria, even though she's based in Severna Park. It's not that far away being a former Maryland girl or I am a Maryland girl who now lives in North Carolina, but it's not that far. So she does. Do you have a service parameter, or you'll go anywhere?
Well, we'll go anywhere within reason. Alexandria is about 45 minutes. So we do the same to go north, to go, wherever. So we have had people contact us where they're about 2 hours away. And
oh my goodness.
And that's where, we just say, we just have to look at everything and see how that's actually going to work. Of course, we do charge for the time, the travel time and all that good stuff. So, but it's not going to hinder me where you're located. I'll definitely do my best to accommodate and offer my services to you, as long as that we can execute the food safely, properly, and the way, and delicious. So those are the big things. But yeah, I love doing the events at Freeman. Fingers crossed we're back there at some point. And it's not far. And that's the thing too. Virginia is so close, and DC. So we're in DC a lot as well. And all over the place.
Well, and when I used to live up there, I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just see you in an hour to my friends in Northern Virginia. And it was no big deal. I mean, because that's just how you lived in DC, Maryland, Virginia area. So, so dietary restrictions and, food safety, coming through, because one caterer, I was listening to one thing and one doctor's like, oh no, everybody should be temperature tested when they come into a wedding. And, actually it should be the wedding planner's decision or the bride's decision on whether there's dancing and buffets and things like that. And somebody did ask, whose responsibility is it? Is it the planner? Is it the bride? Is it the caterer makes those decisions on social distancing? How are you going to deal with that? Well,
I think that what I'm going to follow the guidelines of the governor. So if he says that we need to social distance, I'm not going to be comfortable executing an event that isn't following those strict rules, even if it's not my event, and I appreciate that, those rules could really hinder a vision of the event, or, it would disrupt the vision of the bride and groom. And I appreciate that, but these regulations are in place for our safety and our wellness. And so I wouldn't be comfortable executing an event. So, I have also received a similar question. Well, it's like, what if you get a phone call for a delivery for, 50 people, but you're not working the event? And that's where it gets a little dicey. And I haven't had to do that, yet. So I don't know what my answer would be, but when it comes to me being there, my staff being there, that would be a no-go.
And to me, that's fair. And we're going to have to figure this out, because I think there's going to be people who are going to come in full, scuba gear and stay away from me. And I think that person would probably not actually come to the event if it came down to that. And then there's going to be people that are going to be hugging everybody and kissing everybody and stuff. And so we have to find that balance, and I think the good word too is be inclusive of their needs in that respect as well.
Yes. And figuring out ways, and that's what I mean, I wouldn't certainly be like, absolutely not. But, I think I would say, well, we need to follow these rules. So let's look at it. What can we do? How can we space the seating? How about we do a plated service rather than a buffet? How can we work this so you get the day and the event that you want and we are safe?
Right. So a lot of people are curious about the gloves and the masks and staff wearing them. And, I said in my webinar, it might be passed on to you as a cost, an added cost. And somebody else said, well, isn't that the cost of doing business? Shouldn't that catering company and hotel absorb that cost of doing that? And then you could add the staff in there, additional staff for serving people. So What do you think about that?
I think that I'm always so open to working with people. If I send them a quote and it's just like, they're like, how can we work this? I will do my best to accommodate and work within people's budgets and their vision. But I think that ultimately, like if it ends up being to have to be a seated plated meal, I guess my thought process, and not to sound negative, but you are deciding to have an event during this time. And because of that, I have to follow these guidelines. And you need the staff for it. And I think that's sort of how I would address it and say, we need extra staff because this is how we have to execute this event, so I think that ultimately I would initially pass it on to the client. I wouldn't be nickel and diming for masks and gloves. I got cases of gloves. Like that really wouldn't even be a factor into the cost. But I think in terms of staffing, absolutely.
So we're getting to that 30-minute mark, and I don't want people to go kind of way over, but one final question, because you, in my opinion, you do a really good job on the dietary restrictions and stuff. Considering the food safety and things like this, one person said, I'm gluten-free. How will this affect me? And I'm like, gluten-free and dietary restrictions fall under food safety protocols in general. Catering companies should be adhering to those at the same time. But do you have anything to add to that?
I think that, I think generally speaking that, I have noticed that in checking out different like menus and things that like where we could order in for dinner, sort of the dietary restrictions have gone to the wayside a little bit. Restaurants and businesses like myself are trying to utilize product that we have, are trying to work with what we can get, and it does make it difficult. But I think ultimately, if you communicate with the place that you're calling, or if you communicate with me and say, April, I really want to order your food, but I have these concerns, I would think that anybody would be willing to have that conversation and see what they can do to accommodate. I think that anyone, regardless of dietary restrictions, should be able to enjoy an excellent meal and not have a fear of whether they're going to have a reaction or, there should be no fear. You should be able to enjoy that meal. So I think it will affect some, maybe your favorite place you like to go eat and is not the place you're going to order in from right now because they can't offer that. But that there are options, there are options out there. There are options in Severna Park and in an NSL.
Table.
Yeah. I think that ultimately people, businesses want to cater to everyone, and they want to make sure that people come. And I think people, people love to hear when a business is offering a gluten-free pizza crust and offering, these different options. I think that those who have dietary restrictions really, really appreciate that. My nephew has allergies out the wazoo. He's allergic to all grains.
Oh, wow.
And so sometimes going out to a meal with him is a challenge, but we found places that work with my sister and him, and it's a great experience. So I think, people generally speaking will work with you.
Speaking of pizza and eating out, I ate at a pizza restaurant in an airport and they had gluten-free options. And I was really excited. They said, hey, do you want a glove change for us to make your pizza? And I'm like, yeah, that would be great.
Yes.
But then they take the brush from the pesto that they use for everything and then put that on my pizza. And I'm like, what's the point in the glove change? You didn't change. You should have taken a fresh thing of pesto out of the cabinet that's not used for anybody else except for those ones and do that. I was just like, okay.
What a shame.
Yeah, it is. And then their pizza crusts were stacked on top of each other. And I like the fact that the gluten-free ones went in on a black slip into the pizza oven. But then again, I thought back at it later, I think all of the wooden boards were stacked on top of each other. So it really, that defeats the purpose.
Right.
So,
yeah. And, I think just taking those extra touches of being, keeping things separate, having separate containers, separate, however you can work it. But, like we have, for example, in my kitchen, I have oats, I've got, and a specific container for the gluten-free oats, and it lives in a specific place. And, you have to be mindful of that. And that's the whole cross-contamination thing that I think sometimes just gets tossed by the wayside, but it can't, you really can't. Someone could get really sick. Some of these allergies are so severe. You can't take that risk. You just have to, and a couple extra containers, a couple extra minutes. Then the people who have dietary restrictions don't mind waiting as much, knowing that they're going to get that product. I find that they're very patient and comfortable saying, "I'll wait." I want it to be right and safe. So,
right. Yeah, exactly. All right. So how can people find you?
Well, you can check out our website, www.aprilstable.com. We're also on Instagram and on Facebook and Twitter. And you can reach out to us also at eat@aprilstable.com. That's my email. But yeah, we're located right in the heart of Old Severna Park, right off of Baltimore-Annapolis Boulevard. We're not allowing guests to come into the shop at this time. However, I am scheduling phone appointments, Zoom meetings with future clients and things like that to get to know us. We're also, we haven't yet, but I'm prepared to offer contactless curbside pickup or delivery of tastings.
Cool.
So, we're trying our best to work it, but that's where we are, and that's how you can get in touch with us, any of those avenues.
Okay, great. And when is your first event on your books? Right?
November.
Okay.
A lot of our events throughout the summer and early fall have decided to reschedule or cancel. So, but we do have one, a big one, a bat mitzvah pending and in November. So fingers crossed, but we'll see. So hopefully, we're back to some sort of normalcy by then, but if not, we'll just see how we can work it.
Okay. So one more question on that. So you're doing a bat mitzvah. They're not requiring certified kosher food.
So we follow the kosher diet, but does not need to be certified kosher.
Okay.
Yes. So, but we are following the diet strictly. So no cheese, no cheese on top of meats, no pork, obviously. So we're following the guidelines really strictly. But,
and no crabs.
Correct. Right.
No Maryland crabs. Dang it.
I know. Darn.
I know. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and I really appreciate what you do for the food allergic, and actually this is Food Allergy Awareness Month. So I'm so glad that we're chatting now.
Well, thank you so much, Tracy. Thanks for reaching out. It's a pleasure to chat with you again. I had such a great time at the event we did together, and this was great. So thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast, where every meal matters. I'm Tracy Stuckrath, your food and beverage inclusion expert. Call me and let's get started right now on creating safe and inclusive food and beverage experiences for your customers, your employees, and your communities. Share the podcast with your friends and colleagues at our Eating at a Meeting Facebook page and on all podcast platforms. To learn more about me and receive valuable information, go to tracystuckrath.com. And if you'd like more information on how to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line, then visit eatingatameeting.com.